In this video, we're going to be putting some racing seats in my 98 Acura Integra. In my last video, I mentioned that this car is going to be getting a JDM B20B swap, and part of the deal is I'm trading some wheels and tires and a little bit of cash, my entire factory interior, and a few other parts for the motor and for the labor. So naturally, it was time to do some shopping for some new racing seats. When shopping for racing seats, there's a lot to consider. Besides the obvious things like price and color, there are a few other things that you need to consider. What brand should I get? What model should I get? And there are lots of them. Will the seat fit in my car? Will I fit in the seat? How am I going to mount them to the car? When I was in the desert racing and pre-runner scene, most of my buddies would weld their seat brackets to the cage, which kind of sucked for me because I'm a short guy and that means I couldn't drive most of my friends' trucks. So for this car, I knew I at least wanted to have seat sliders for some adjustability. Truth be told, price was a big factor, and I'm sure that is for many of you too. I have 5 projects running simultaneously right now, so I'm trying to be a baller on a budget. So keeping that in mind, I originally settled on the Sparco R100, but after doing some research, I decided that I wanted to go with a fixed back seat, so that led me to the Sparco Sprint. But the Sparco Sprints go for about $400 a piece, and that's still a little bit more than I was wanting to spend. So I jumped on YouTube and I searched for affordable racing seats Integra, and this is what I found. These are Type R seats, and these are not cheap. This video I've seen before and I highly recommend. Then I saw this video, most affordable FIA approved racing seat. And let's be real, I'm Filipino, so when you see other Filipinos, you're naturally curious to see what they're up to. Especially since I moved to Spokane. I'm from San Diego, California, where there's lots of us. And in a year of living here, I've only seen two other Filipinos while being here in Spokane, so naturally I was curious. Anyway, in his video, Royce installed the Corbeau Forza Sport, and he mentioned a couple things that I had not considered before, namely making sure that the seat actually fits you. I might be short, but I'm also pretty wide, and the last thing I wanted is a seat that hugs me too much and makes me really cramped in the seat. So I looked at the specs on the Sprint and the R100 and the Corbeau Forza, and the Forza had the best price, was a fixed back, and it also seemed like it would fit me the best. So I ordered a pair of those in black cloth along with a pair of mounting brackets for the Integra. By the way, after ordering these seats, I found out that these Forzas are actually no longer FIA approved, but I'm not really doing any serious racing, so that's not really that important to me. Let's get to the install. There are 4 12mm bolts holding your seats to the car, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. The 2 in the back are covered, and to remove the plastic trim, just pull them toward the back of the car and they should snap right off. On the driver's side, there's a sensor for the seat belt. Release the connector and snip the plastic bits holding the sensor wire to the bottom of the seat. Next, use a 14mm socket to remove the seat belt from the seat along with the sensor cable. I was really impressed with how these seats were shipped. When I first saw the box, I thought they had only sent me one seat, but they were both in the same box. After ripping the bubble wrap out of the way, remove the 4 screws on the bottom of the seat using a 6mm Allen and use them to attach the mounting bracket to the seat. I put them on loose at first, and then tighten them in a crisscross pattern. Reattach the bolt to the seatbelt with a washer on the back and attach it to the mounting bracket. Where the seatbelt attaches to the bracket, there's a threaded hole and another hole below it. At first, I thought that the second hole was for the seatbelt sensor, but it didn't fit, so I ignored the hole. I then realized when I installed the seatbelt on the passenger side that the second hole is actually supposed to make sure that the seatbelt doesn't spin in the bracket. On the back side of the seatbelt, there's this little tab that sticks up, and that's what goes into that second hole to make sure that thing doesn't swivel on you. I figured this out after the passenger seat was already in the car, but luckily I was able to fit a box wrench in there to fix it. Carefully put the seat in the car. Reconnect the seatbelt sensor and tuck it away. This part is important. At first, the brackets may not seem like they actually fit the holes in the car, and the passenger side was actually a little bit worse. The gaps were bigger. But if you're patient with it, they should fit. Lightly and just with your hands, thread the bolts in one at a time and leave them slightly loose so you can still move the seat around and so you don't accidentally cross-thread the bolts. In some spots, you may need to lift the seat a little for the holes to match up. Once the bolts are in and spin smoothly, tighten them down and use a torque wrench to tighten the 3 smaller bolts to 16 foot-pounds and the bigger one to 29 foot-pounds. Here I am testing the fit for the first time. As you can see, I'm really short. I'm 5'4". First thing I noticed is that it's a little challenging getting to the factory seatbelt, and the belt rubs on the top corner when buckling up. I'm super glad that I got the wider seat because I have wide shoulders and this seat really hugs me up top. Did I mention I'm short? With the seat all the way forward and my low back pressed all the way to the back of the seat, my leg is straight when I push in the clutch, which is no bueno. The seat is a little high, and with the way the roof of the car slopes, sitting up so far doesn't leave me a lot of room for a helmet. If I slouch, I can reach the pedal just fine. And in fact, after driving this car a little bit, I actually found it more comfortable to push the seat back a little more and then slouch a little more, because I don't really like sitting up so upright when I'm driving around town. This also brings my face a little further away from the steering wheel and brings my head further back to where the roof has a little more room. So I might actually be able to fit a helmet, but if you watch that episode of High Car, Low Car on Donut Media, they actually ran into the same issue with the Corbeau seats being a little bit tall. So in order to fit themselves in there wearing a helmet, they had to lower the way the seat was mounted, and so that's what I might end up having to do if I start racing this car. I didn't realize it until after driving this car a little bit, but I really should have spent a little bit extra money on that inflatable lumbar support. The process for the passenger side is the same but a little bit simpler. Remove the plastic trim pieces covering the bolts in the back and remove the bolts. And then remove the bolts on the front. Remove the seat. Unpack the new seat. Remove the Allen screws from the bottom. Attach the mounting bracket. Attach the seat belt using the bottom hole to line it up. And install the seat. Like I mentioned earlier, the gaps between the mounting bracket tabs and the holes in the car were a little bit bigger on the passenger side, but once I got everything lined up and the bolts were in, everything snugged up nicely. Overall, I'm pretty happy with these seats. They look really cool, and they're much more comfortable than the factory seats. The factory seats were awful, but they were also 22 years old. My wife's butt is very sensitive, and my wife's butt approves of these seats. At least so far. We drove around for a couple hours and no complaints. Up next, I have a 16-hour road trip from Spokane to Las Vegas to do my B20 swap, so we'll see just how comfy these seats are. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I learned a lot through this experience, and I hope this helps you too if you're considering buying racing seats. If you guys have any questions, post them in the comments below. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.